The unconquerable meets the unbreakable. The Mazarin Collective had existed for over 12,000 galactic cycles. Their civilization spanned 17 star clusters, encompassing worlds so numerous that the Collective Council no longer bothered with individual planetary designations. They simply referred to their territory as the Dominion, a fitting name for an empire that had never known defeat. High Commander Vexar stood on the observation deck of the indomitable Assertion, the flagship of the Collective's expansion fleet. The massive vessel stretched nearly 3 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull composed of self-regenerating alloys that could withstand direct hits from most conventional weapons. Behind the Assertion floated 36 other warships of various classes, each designed for a specific role in the methodical conquest that had become the Collective's signature. Status report on the target system. Vexar commanded. 6 crystalline eyes focused on the holographic display that showed their approach vector to the isolated yellow star. Sub-Commander Nyleth stepped forward, her exoskeleton clicking softly on the polished deck. High Commander, the system contains 8 planets with only the 3rd being of any significance. The dominant species calls their world Earth, and themselves humans. They have achieved rudimentary spaceflight, but remain confined primarily to their homeworld and its natural satellite. Technological assessment. Approximately development grade 3.7 on the Mazarin scale. They have harnessed nuclear energy, developed basic AI systems, and have a marginal presence on their neighboring planet, but still rely heavily on chemical propulsion for space travel. Their defensive capabilities are primitive, mostly kinetic weapons and nuclear deterrence. Vexar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among the Mazarin. Another simple integration, then. The usual approach. Yes, High Commander. The sociological division suggests they will respond typically to a display of superior force. Historical data indicates a 93% probability of surrender within their first planetary rotation after the demonstration. The Mazarin had refined their conquest strategy over thousands of years. The approach was elegant in its simplicity. Arrive at a new system, demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority by neutralizing the target's most powerful weapons, then offer them a choice between submission or annihilation. Most chose submission. Those who didn't quickly learned why the Mazarin remained undefeated. Prepare the standard greeting package, Vexar ordered. I want transition to normal space precisely 1 light minute from their homeworld. Maximum visibility. As the fleet prepared to drop out of faster-than-light travel, Vexar reviewed the preliminary data on the humans. Bipedal mammals with relatively short lifespans, organized into nearly 200 political entities they called nations, technologically inconsistent across their world, with some regions considerably more advanced than others. Most interesting was their history, an almost uninterrupted chronicle of conflict among themselves. Curious, Vexar remarked. They spend so much energy fighting each other that they've barely looked outward. A common trait among younger species, High Commander, Nyleth replied. Their internal divisions will make integration simpler. Our models predict they will struggle to form a unified response. The bridge illuminated with the distinctive blue flash that indicated transition to normal space. Immediately, the holographic displays adjusted to show the blue-green world that would soon become the newest addition to the Dominion. Deployment of observation drones complete, reported the sensor officer. Initial scans show primitive orbital installations and defense satellites. No significant threat detected. Begin the demonstration, Vexar ordered calmly. 3 smaller vessels detached from the fleet, advancing toward Earth with precise coordination. Each carried a nullifier, a device that could selectively disable electrical systems across an entire continent without causing permanent damage. The perfect tool for showing a primitive species the futility of resistance. On Earth, the appearance of the Mazarin fleet triggered immediate chaos. In the United Earth Defense Command Center buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Elena Cheng stared at the satellite imagery with a mixture of dread and determination. 37 ships, largest estimated at 3 kilometers length, reported her intelligence officer, Colonel Wei. They appeared without warning, no detectable approach. Which means their FTL technology is well beyond ours, Cheng stated, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. What are those smaller vessels doing? Approaching in formation, currently passing lunar orbit. Cheng turned to face the assembled Joint Chiefs and civilian leadership. President Adeyemi, who had arrived via emergency transport just minutes earlier, appeared remarkably composed. Madam President, we need to decide on our response immediately, Cheng said. Standard protocol would suggest attempting communication while preparing defensive measures. President Adeyemi nodded. Do we have any way to communicate with them? We're broadcasting on all frequencies, but there's been no response, replied the communications director. Wait, we're detecting energy buildups in the approaching vessels. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence, and they were powering up weapons. General, what are our options? The president asked quietly. Cheng hesitated only briefly. Limited, Madam President. Our kinetic orbital platforms might damage their smaller ships, but nothing in our arsenal is likely to threaten that flagship. But we do have something they don't expect, interjected a voice from the back of the room. All heads turned toward Dr. Maya Lindstrom, the director of the classified Prometheus project. Dr. Lindstrom, this isn't the time for theoretical discussions, General Cheng began, but the president raised a hand. Let her speak, General. Lindstrom stepped forward. At 52, with prematurely white hair and intense green eyes, she commanded attention despite her small stature. For the past 15 years, the Prometheus project has been developing technology based on unusual radiation patterns detected from the Sagittarius arm. We believe they were artificial in origin. Now, I'm certain they were from ships like those. She pointed at the display. We've created prototype defensive systems that might, and I stress might, interfere with their technology. Nothing that can destroy those ships, but possibly enough to disrupt whatever they're planning. President Adeyemi's eyes narrowed. Why am I just hearing about this now? Classification level exceeded presidential authorization. Lindstrom replied without apology. Only an actual first contact scenario allowed me to disclose this information. Before the president could respond, alarms blared throughout the command center. Energy surge detected. Massive power fluctuations across the eastern seaboard, called out the sensor operator. All electrical systems failing from Maine to Florida. They're making a point, Cheng said grimly, showing us what they can do. The Mazarin expected panic. They expected immediate capitulation, or at least desperate attempts at negotiation. What they didn't expect was what happened next. As the nullifiers completed their demonstration, disabling electrical grids across North America, Europe, and East Asia in sequence, the Mazarin prepared to broadcast their ultimatum. But before they could transmit, sensor alarms blared on the bridge of the indomitable assertion. High Commander, detecting multiple launches from the surface. The sensor officer reported with unusual urgency. Primitive projectiles, but counting over 200 separate launch points. Vexar's crystalline eyes narrowed. Impossible. Their command infrastructure should be disabled. Manual launches, High Commander, Nylith observed, surprise evident in her typically controlled voice. They anticipated the electrical disruption and prepared alternative firing mechanisms. The missiles that streaked toward the Mazarin fleet were indeed primitive by collective standards. Conventional rockets with limited guidance systems, most could be easily intercepted or deflected by the fleet's defensive fields, but the sheer number was unexpected, as was their coordination despite the nullifier's effects. Engagement Protocol Theta, Vexar ordered, still unconcerned. Target their launch facilities once we've neutralized these weapons. The fleet's defense systems activated, creating shimmering barriers of energy that would atomize any conventional missiles on contact. The first wave of human projectiles approached, and as expected, most detonated harmlessly against the barriers. But not all. High Commander, 3 projectiles penetrated the defensive field of the Resolute Dominance, called out the tactical officer, referring to one of the smaller cruisers. Impossible. Vexar snapped. Analyze those weapons immediately. What the Mazarin didn't know, couldn't have known, was that humanity had prepared for this moment ever since their astronomers detected anomalous readings 5 years earlier. Dr. Lindstrom and her team had developed specialized warheads that emitted radiation patterns designed to create momentary fluctuations in energy fields similar to those observed from distant space. The missiles that penetrated the Mazarin defenses caused minimal physical damage, but they proved something vital. The aliens weren't invincible. In the following hours, as the Mazarin attempted to broadcast their ultimatum, they discovered another surprise. Despite disabling most of Earth's electrical infrastructure, communications continued through backup systems, mechanical relays, and technologies specifically designed to function during an EMP event, the result of a century of preparing for nuclear war among themselves. President Adeyemi's response, broadcast simultaneously in all major languages, was not at all what the collective expected. To the commanders of the alien fleet, your unprovoked attack on our infrastructure has been noted. It will not be forgotten, nor will it go unanswered. Humanity does not surrender to bullies, regardless of their technological advantage. We have existed for thousands of years in a constant state of challenge and adaptation. If you came expecting easy conquest, you have gravely miscalculated. On the bridge of the indomitable assertion, Vexar listened to the translation with growing disbelief. They're refusing our terms before we've even fully stated them, Nilith observed. This contradicts all predictive models. Adjust the model, Vexar replied coldly, and prepare ground forces. If they insist on learning the hard way, we will oblige them. As the first Mazarin landing craft descended toward strategic locations around the planet, High Commander Vexar remained confident. In 12,000 cycles of expansion, the collective had never failed to subjugate a target world. Earth would be no different. He couldn't have been more wrong. Part 2. Strength Beyond Technology. The first wave of Mazarin ground troops landed outside major population centers on every continent. Each deployment followed the collective's standard protocol. Establish a perimeter. Demonstrate overwhelming force against any military response. Then begin systematic takeover of key infrastructure. Their exo-armored soldiers stood nearly 3 meters tall, equipped with energy weapons that could disintegrate conventional armor and vehicles with ease. In Jakarta, Commander Tavik led a battalion toward the Indonesian capital. Defensive capability assessment. He inquired of his tactical officer. Minimal threat, Commander. Primitive projectile weapons, some armored vehicles. Nothing that can penetrate our personal shields. Tavik clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. Proceed as planned. Eliminate any military resistance, but minimize civilian casualties as per integration protocols. The battalion advanced confidently, their heavy footfalls shaking the ground. As predicted, Indonesian military forces attempted resistance. Tanks and infantry units established defensive positions, opening fire with weapons that simply couldn't penetrate Mazarin defenses. Or so they thought. The first indication that something was wrong came when 3 Mazarin soldiers at the front of the formation suddenly collapsed, their exo-armor failing catastrophically. Status report, Tavik demanded. Unknown, Commander. Their weapons appeared to be simple kinetic projectiles, but the tactical officer never finished his sentence as another round struck him directly in the sensory cluster. What the Mazarin didn't understand was that humans had been killing each other with remarkable efficiency for millennia. When faced with the aliens' energy shields, military engineers worldwide had immediately begun adapting. The Indonesian forces had coated their conventional ammunition with materials harvested from the few Mazarin drones they'd managed to disable during the initial orbital attack. Similar scenarios played out across the globe. In Brazil, guerrilla fighters used the dense Amazon rainforest to launch hit-and-run attacks, never staying in one place long enough for the Mazarin to bring their superior firepower to bear. In Russia, Conventional forces fell back according to a strategy their ancestors had employed against Napoleon and Hitler, trading space for time while the civilian population converted factories to produce weapons specifically designed to counter Mazarin technology. Most surprisingly to the collective was how quickly humans shared information. Despite the nullifiers disabling most conventional communications, information about Mazarin vulnerabilities spread through improvised networks, shortwave radio, physical messengers, even signal fires and flags when necessary. On the indomitable assertion, High Commander Vexar struggled to comprehend the tactical reports flooding in from ground forces worldwide. "This makes no sense," he hissed, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. "They're a pre-unification species with limited technology. How are they coordinating on a global scale with their infrastructure disabled?" Sub-Commander Nyleth had been analyzing the data for hours. "It appears they've had extensive practice operating under communications blackouts, High Commander. Their history of internal warfare has prepared them for precisely this scenario. Adjust tactics accordingly. Deploy the second wave with enhanced shielding and authorize maximum force protocols." "High Commander," Nyleth began hesitantly, "sociological division suggests a different approach. These humans seem to become more unified when facing external threats. Perhaps negotiation." "The Mazarin Collective does not negotiate with primitive species," Vexar snapped. "We have never failed to complete an integration, and we will not fail now. Deploy the subjugators." The subjugators were the Collective's elite forces, equipped with the most advanced weaponry in their arsenal. As they prepared to deploy, however, Earth demonstrated yet another unexpected capability. Dr. Maya Lindstrom stood in the makeshift command center established in the Cheyenne Mountain nuclear bunker, surrounded by a team of scientists and military personnel. Before them lay components salvaged from downed Mazarin drones and landing craft. "Their technology operates on principles we theorized but never implemented," she explained, pointing to a crystalline structure within a damaged weapon. "They're using quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication and power distribution. That's why our initial EMPs were only partially effective." "Can we block their communications?" asked General Cheng. Lindstrom shook her head. "Not entirely, but we can introduce noise into their system. Think of it as giving them the equivalent of a migraine headache, not shutting them down, but making everything function less efficiently." President Adeyemi, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward. "Do it, and contact all Allied commands. I want this technology deployed globally within 24 hours." As the subjugators descended toward Earth, they encountered something the Mazarin had never faced before: an electronic warfare environment specifically tailored to their technology. Their normally perfect coordination fragmented. Targeting systems delivered conflicting data. Communications with the fleet became sporadic. On the ground, human forces had adapted with astonishing speed. In just days, they had repurposed Mazarin technology, combining it with their own in ways the aliens had never anticipated. Energy shields designed to stop energy weapons proved less effective against kinetic projectiles fired at unusual velocities. Mazarin tactical doctrine, which relied on perfect coordination, fell apart when faced with the seemingly chaotic but actually highly adaptive human approach to warfare. In orbit, High Commander Vexar faced the unthinkable. A genuine military challenge from a supposedly primitive species. How? He demanded of no one in particular. How are they doing this? A junior communications officer approached cautiously. "High Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the humans. They're requesting dialogue." Vexar's inner membranes constricted in fury. They dare to suggest dialogue now, after defying the collective. "Sir," Nyleth intervened, "sociological division has completed a comprehensive analysis. These humans, they're unlike any species we've encountered. Their historical pattern of constant internal conflict has created a civilization that excels at adaptation. They've had more wars in their brief history than most species have in 10 times the developmental period. That should make them weaker, not stronger," Vexar argued. In normal circumstances, yes, but it means they've developed a unique psychological profile. Where most species seek harmony and stability, humans have been forged in perpetual adversity. They don't fear change. They expect it. They don't break under pressure. They innovate. A tactical officer interrupted. High Commander, we're detecting launches from multiple sites, larger missiles this time, and they appear to be targeting our primary power distribution node specifically. For the first time in his distinguished career, Vexar felt uncertainty. The collective had always relied on their technological superiority, but these humans weren't fighting the way other species fought. They weren't trying to match Mazarin technology. They were finding its weaknesses and exploiting them with ruthless efficiency. "Accept the transmission," he finally ordered. President Adeyemi's face appeared on the main display. Despite the stress of leading a global resistance against an alien invasion, she appeared composed and resolute. "High Commander of the alien fleet," she began, "I speak now for a united Earth. Your invasion has accomplished what centuries of our own history could not. It has united humanity against a common threat. We have no desire for continued conflict, but make no mistake, we will never surrender our independence." Vexar studied the human leader carefully. "Your resistance is impressive but ultimately futile. The collective has never failed to complete an integration. Then perhaps it's time for the collective to evolve." Adeyemi replied calmly. "We've analyzed your technology sufficiently to understand that while advanced, it is not invincible. This conflict could continue for years, with mounting casualties on both sides. Or we could find another path. The Mazarin do not compromise," Vexar stated, though with less conviction than he would have shown days earlier. "Then the Mazarin have never encountered humans before," Adeyemi countered. "We are offering something unprecedented. A relationship between equals, despite our technological differences. We can provide resources, knowledge, and perspectives your collective has never encountered. Or you can continue a war against an enemy who will never stop adapting to your tactics, never stop finding new ways to fight back, and who will share every successful strategy globally within hours." The bridge fell silent as Vexar considered the implications. The humans had managed to damage multiple ships, neutralize subjugator teams, and counter technologies that had overwhelmed far more advanced civilizations, and they had done it all in less than 2 weeks. "High Commander," Nileth spoke quietly, "sociological division projects that complete subjugation of this species would require resources equivalent to 3 standard integrations, with a significantly higher casualty rate among our forces." Vexar's crystalline eyes narrowed as he made the most difficult decision of his career. "President Adeyemi, the collective acknowledges your unique capabilities. I am authorized to discuss terms for a cessation of hostilities." The negotiations that followed established a new paradigm in Mazarin history. For the first time, the collective entered into a treaty with a species they had failed to conquer. A treaty between equals. Earth would maintain its independence while gaining access to certain Mazarin technologies, particularly in medicine and sustainable energy. In exchange, the collective would receive cultural and historical data about humanity, along with the right to establish diplomatic and trade relations. As the Mazarin fleet prepared to depart Earth orbit, Sub-Commander Nileth joined Vexar on the observation deck. "The Council is still processing our report," she said. "Some members are calling for your replacement." Vexar remained focused on the blue planet below. "They will understand once they review the complete data. These humans, they're different. In all our history, we've conquered through technological superiority. But the humans showed us that technology alone isn't enough." "What is their advantage then?" Nileth asked. "Adversity," Vexar replied. "They've spent their entire history fighting, against nature, against each other. They've never known the stability the collective has enjoyed for millennia, and it has made them extraordinarily dangerous." As news of the treaty spread throughout the galaxy, a new phrase entered the interstellar lexicon: human ingenuity, the unexpected quality that had transformed the invincible into the merely formidable. The Mazarin would remain a powerful force in the galaxy, but never again would they be considered unstoppable. They had faced humans, and that changed everything. Throughout the 17-star clusters of the Mazarin Dominion, military academies added a new principle to their teaching: never underestimate a species forged in conflict. And on 1,000 worlds, the story spread of the primitive planet that had done the impossible, the world that had taught the Mazarin what it meant to face an unbreakable will. The galaxy would never be the same.